Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. This is now video 16 for Just Make It, and today I want to finish off putting this wooden mallet together. At the end of last week's video, this is as far as I got. I had these blocks all glued together, and of course I turned down the handle. Now what I want to do today is mark out the holes and drill them and insert the dowels, and then of course also attach the wooden handle. Now, if you remember from last week, I had mentioned the reason why I'm using dowels is not because I think they're the best thing in the universe for making this sort of project, but because I want to test out the limits of them to see just how strong and durable they are. I've made a bunch of things with them so far, most notably, of course, the drawers for this workstation. They're doing really well. I haven't had any issues with them, but then again, they're not really under an awful lot of stress, and it may take years and years before I notice if there's any kind of problem making them with dowels. So this, obviously, a mallet, is going to have a lot more force on it, and I think I'll find out how well dowels are for holding such a thing together much quicker. So I'm going to just drill these out now, and it was a very simple, straightforward process. All I had to do was make sure that this block was set up so that the drill bit's going through perpendicular. I don't think it really would have made a whole lot of difference, except of course for aesthetics. If you wanted to spend a lot of time looking at it from one side to another, you might have noticed if they were going in a bit of an angle. But as it turns out, it's perfectly fine. I don't think it's going to change anything as far as the stresses on it, for sure anyway. So the holes turned out pretty good. You can see the two in the middle are a little wider set, given plenty of space for the center handle. Well, that's where it's going to go. And now it's just a simple matter of taking these dowels, and these are actually new dowels for me, because normally what I did is I would go to one of the local big box stores, and they sell these dowels in like a 4-foot section. I would just cut it down. But on Amazon, I noticed that they had you can buy it was in their crafts section. You can get these. They're just, again, 1/4-inch wooden dowels. They're only 6 inches long, but they were a little bit cheaper because you got quite a bit more of them. So I thought I'd try that out. It was very easy shipping and everything, and I wanted to see if these were any more consistent in their diameter. I found locally, if I would buy them, sometimes they'd be a little bit thicker and a little bit thinner, and that was a bit annoying. So I got these, and I've noticed they are consistent, but they're also consistently a little bit undersized. In this particular case, it's not really a problem, and I have no idea why I'm centering these. As long as they stick out, they're fine. Because when I was making the drawers, I had to pound them in, and if I had to pound them in through, each of those are 3/4 of an inch. I had to pound them through all that. There might have been an issue with them cracking or breaking or not going through at all, and I'm actually kind of happy that it was a little bit easier to insert them. So what I'm doing here is I decided I want to put some threads on the handle. And my thought process at this point was it might make it a little bit more rigid when I came to gluing this together. But as it turns out, when I turned down this, this is basically a square piece of the same material, the same hardwood that I was making everything else out of. When I turned it down, I couldn't get it to the point where it was round enough to put threads on and still be thick enough for that die to put really good threads on. So you saw that they're really quite shallow, and as it turns out, I am not going to end up using them. But actually not because of that. It was mostly because I don't have the right size drill bit for the tap. For that same size of like the mate for that one, and that means there was just no point in doing it. So I ended up turning that all down anyway. So this is the next day. I've let them cure, and just quickly on the bandsaw there, just lopped off the excess of them. Now what I'm going to do here, because when I glue these together, there's always a little bit of a shift. It's not perfectly lined up when you do this. I'm just going to ever so lightly skim off the ends of these and get them all nice and square. That way it looks a lot nicer this way. Again, as you can still see there is more work as far as sanding goes, but like I said, it's a good start anyway on this. So here you go. I have done all the sides now. Still obviously some rough marks. Again, lots of sanding. And in most of these videos I really won't show a whole lot of the sanding process because it is really quite long and tedious sometimes. In this case I am not doing a whole lot of it, but enough that, well, it's pretty much as long as the rest of the whole project put together. So here we go. I'm going to use a Forstner bit here, and this is the size I decided to go with for the handle. And just I've already set the depth on the mill, and I'm just going to drill straight down through. And the nice thing about using this instead of doing it freehand or on a drill press, it is guaranteed to be nice and perpendicular, so the handle will look, aesthetically where it should be, as a nice and straight. There you go. Very easy. These are new bits actually because of well, I got a sale on them. So now I turn this. This is the handle again, and that's where the threads were. But fortunately, I managed to just turn that down, so this is actually a really nice tight friction fit. Now I'm going to reverse this. This is the handle part where I'm going to hang on to. I don't want to make this too smooth because I do want it to have a little bit of a friction to it. It's a handle I want to be able to hang on to, in other words. But I do want it to have no splinters and stuff. So that's the goal of sanding this down at this point. So this is the last step really as far as the assembly goes. I left that really rough, and just going to glue that in, and you notice up in the upper right hand corner that is my gentle persuader, because this is actually a friction fit and I want it to be nice and snug. So I'm going to get this started, and then unfortunately I had to go off camera because that had to be done really fast, and then I just pounded it in place, and it was quite straightforward to do, but I couldn't readjust the camera and run the risk of any of this swelling in the joint or anything, and of course not being able to get it fully set in place. But fortunately it all worked out nice, and there you go, a wooden mallet. Now all that's left now is to I left a question on last week's video whether or not to leave it square like this or to round over all the edges. And I got a comment saying that, and I agree with it, it's better to round off the edges, that way you don't have any chipping on the corners if you happen to nick on it. So it's just a quick, easy process here of using a round over bit on a router and just lightly passing on here just to remove that the sharp corners of it. And of course after that, a whole pile of sanding to get this down to a nice fine finish. And the only other thing I've been going back and forth on is whether or not to put a finish on this. I mean, it's a mallet. It's meant to be banged around. I did sand it up reasonably nice, but normally what I do in this case at this point would be to put on some boiled linseed oil and just finish it up nicely. I haven't done that yet. If you guys think that it would look much nicer and it actually would help it last longer, definitely leave a comment below and let me know what you think. So there you go. I'm going to do a little bit more sanding on this because you still see there's some rough edges, and that bit's a little dull, so there's a couple burn marks as well. And it's just a simple matter now of sanding that all off. And there you go, the finished product. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think of all this, and of course any future projects or anything else you have in mind. And I will see you in the next video, and bye for now.